gossip comes from the devil's workshop. But true love will make it stop. I want the whole wide world to know that I love you so. They are envious of everything we do, but it's so wonderful when you love someone, and that someone loves you.
Hi, welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo,
And I'm Miss Joan Moossy.
and our guest is Phipl VanAver. Philip is a neighbor of Joni and I on the Lower East Side in the area around Tompkins Square Park. We're going to refer to you were a volunteer for Margarita Lopez, who was at that time running for re-election as a city council person from our district, and it was an easy race, and a race she easily won when it was finally held, and there was monies left over because she had received, as many candidates do, matching funds from the Campaign Finance Board, and her expenses had not really gone beyond her, as far as we understand, her expenses had not gone beyond the amount of money that she had received, and she was then required by law to return that money. When do you step into this? When does this become an issue?
Well, I heard nothing about this, the matter under discussion, until the end of February 2002, when I received a call asking whether I would be at a certain political meeting. And I said I was, and when I went to the meeting, I received a check. And I was extremely surprised when I opened up the envelope and saw that it was for $300. And it was signed.
Why were you surprised? You were working. Why were you surprised at getting a check?
Well, I was surprised by the amount of it. Let's just put it that way. And
Was this your first association with Margarita Lopez?
No. I had been working. I've known Margarita. We served on the community board together, and we were active in other organizations going back to the mid 1980s. And I worked in her 1995 district leader race, and then in her subsequent run for the city council. And to bring this up to 2005, I was a volunteer in her borough president race, starting in February of 2005, right up to the election day. And going back to 2002, I looked at the check and I noticed that it was dated November of 2001. And on the way home, I asked the co-president of CODA whether this check was still good, and she said, "You're just getting it now." And I.
What is CODA?
CODA means Coalition for a District Alternative. It was founded about in the early 1990s to create a political organization of progressives like myself, people who worked together and wanted to reassert political power on the Lower East Side. And anyway, I was assured that the check was good, and I deposited it in my account, and I heard nothing more about the issue. No, not a word until March of 2003, when I received a series of tables which were published by the Committee to Defeat Margarita Lopez, a project of the Lower East Side Political Action Committee that's called Follow the Money. And these tables, which are quite extensive, as you can see, and a list of about 90 people, including myself, who received funds. Most of the money was quite small. I mean, there were 13 people who received $300, but the majority of people received what we might consider small amounts of money, less than $75.
So these are the expenditures
Yes,
of the Margarita
yeah,
Lopez campaign in 2001.
Yes, that I received in 2003.
2003.
And I realized then that someone was very interested in this procedure.
So this was the first indication that there was some kind of an investigation going on regarding these campaign finance funds.
Well, this, of course, is not an official document in any way. It was put together by Margarita's political enemies,
Right.
and it was sent to those of us who had received money. But I deemed the issue of interest, and then I kind of put it on a back burner.
And then what was the next time you heard something?
Well, the next time I heard something was on Thursday, the last Thursday in April of this year, when I received a call late in the evening from a woman by the name of Georgina Christ, who had been the coordinator for volunteers in Margarita Lopez's 2001 campaign. And Georgina said to me, "You received a check in November 2001. Why did you wait until February 27th to deposit the check?" Well, of course, I said I didn't get it until February, and I deposited it the next day.
Why is that an issue?
Well,
Not that you're an expert on the campaign finance board. We're not experts.
well, according to my understanding now, I didn't understand this until quite recently. The Campaign Finance Board does not allow any expenditures in the year following a campaign, except for very, very specific things like sending out Christmas cards, for like people being paid for doing something like that at the very end of the campaign. That is my understanding.
So they can't look back and say, hey, you know, this person really did a great job and we have some extra money.
And not saying this happened, but the appearance of paying somebody in sometime after the deadline in order to make it seem like monies that should have been returned to the city after a campaign have in fact been returned or used for some purpose because they weren't returned.
Well, at the time I understood none of this. And
we're not saying that happened, but the appearance of such a thing.
But I received a call from Margarita Lopez's lawyer on the last Friday in April of this year, requesting that I sign an affidavit. But during that, I had worked in the campaign, and I did indeed work in the campaign. But during the conversation that I had the preceding evening, I was told that the campaign treasurer, Ann Johnson, could not find her records, and Georgina told me that she had destroyed hers. Georgina is probably under no legal obligation to keep her records. But I decided that since neither of these people had records, I wasn't going to sign an affidavit to the effect that I'd worked, because I didn't have any records myself.
That's another issue too about working, because there's a distinction between volunteers and employees that's drawn very strictly in the Campaign Finance Board rules, to my understanding.
Yes, I use the term working as synonymous with volunteering. I think this is the general practice in New York. Many people like myself work in campaigns, but we actually are unpaid to do this.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So the fact that you were a volunteer who then received a paycheck and you did not expect to receive this paycheck made some flags go up with you, or?
No, it was only later, right?
Right,
that
but
you
when you
felt there might be
right.
some kind of...
You know, I had no idea that this was in any way irregular.
Mm-hmm.
I understood that if there were, you know, I felt that if Margarita wished to disperse some funds to people like myself who had worked for years, I remember saying, well, this is like 25 cents an hour.
If you add it up.
Right.
Right. You know, I mean, and Margarita dispersed his funds to many people Many people had, I want to make it clear, we're talking maybe 20 people, 25 people, many of whom maybe $300 came in real handy.
So do you think that, I mean, are we here because you think that anything wrong what happened here,
well, the next step was a newspaper article, right?
Right. I'm just curious what you think. If you think that that something wrong was going on here, or do you think that it was just a mistake or disorganization?
You know, since this issue may be litigated, I'm not really going to give an opinion about issues that don't affect me directly. I mean, on a philosophical level and on a political level, I feel that any time that public funds are used for any purpose, they must be very carefully accounted for, and that the people who are responsible for spending these funds have to follow the regulations very carefully. They cannot be cavalier about spending money that belongs to the taxpayers. And I may sound like some old fuddy-duddy, but that's what I feel.
Mm-hmm. So, when did you get drawn into this controversy yet again?
Well, as I said, I had this series of phone calls in early, at the end of April. I contacted Margarita Lopez's then current borough president campaign.
Right, she was running for borough president.
Yes, and
her much tougher race.
Yes, and her treasurer told me, don't sign anything you don't want to. And that was in May, and I didn't really hear anything more about it until August, when I learned from reading it in the Villager, this newspaper that covers this Greenwich Village, Lower Manhattan, that Margarita would not be awarded her campaign finance matching funds for her borough president race because these issues had not been cleared up. And this was very disturbing to me. I had been concerned ever since the spring that this issue was not going to go away. But even though I was working in her campaign once a week, there was no reference to it. I was not in a situation where it would have been discussed by me. But apparently, it had not been cleared up from May 1st, we'll say, till the middle of August. The issue had still not been resolved to the satisfaction of the Campaign Finance Board.
And what is the present situation?
Well, the present situation is somewhat of a limbo because Margarita Lopez was required to put up, in effect, $180,000 bond to receive her matching funds for her borough president race. There was supposed to be a Campaign Finance Board hearing on November 16th, and that has been postponed. So as of today, the 1st of December, we're still kind of in a limbo of sorts. I mean, Margarita Lopez has had an attorney, has hired an attorney, Jerry Goldfeder, and maybe we can discuss a little bit about that.
Yeah, you had some interaction with Mr. Goldfeder?
Well, I haven't had a personal interaction with Mr. Goldfeder, but he, excuse me one moment, please, while I...
This is Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Moossy, and we're getting ready to discuss something from the Villager newspaper.
Actually, this is from the Gay City News.
Oh, okay. Gay City News.
For 3/9 November 2005. And in this article by Lincoln Anderson, who's also the correspondent for the Villager, Mr. Goldfeder is quoted, and I'm quoting him in part. These people worked on election day, and they were paid on election day. And I have to say to Paul and to Joni and to those who might be watching this program, I really take exception to this.
Why do you take exception?
Because, first of all, Mr. Goldfeder must be aware of the fact, if he has paid any attention to this issue that we've been discussing for quite a while, that not everybody was paid at this time. And we know from articles in the Villager that some of the people who paid, who got checks, described their payments as Christmas presents, implying that they didn't get them till the holiday season. And I wish Mr. Goldfeder, I think Mr. Goldfeder would be serving Margarita better if he really dealt with this issue.
Where do you think things are going to go from here? Have you received any communications? Have you had to testify? Has anybody asked you besides reporters to talk about this?
I did speak with Mr. Lincoln Anderson when he called me following one of his articles in the Villager, because I felt that it was incumbent upon me to set the record straight only as far as my participation in this is concerned, and I cannot predict how this is going to go. I hope that Margarita is able to settle this, even if she has to pay a fine.
Now, you've been supporting Margarita for a long time, as we talked about earlier, since '95 in her first electoral campaign. How do you feel now? Are you still supporting her politically? Or do you feel that this is some kind of blot on her record, or that this is simply a confusion of a chaotic office?
No, in the Villager, I was quoted as saying Margarita Lopez is a very busy person who puts matters in the hands of some people who are not very conscientious, and that is still the view that I hold. And this is not the issue that we're dealing with. The issue that we're with the committee to defeat Margarita Lopez.
Right. Her political enemies.
The people who are listed here as receiving money, to the very best of my knowledge, all were people who worked in her campaign, whether they were legally in a position to receive funds, that's another question. But they were people like myself who had worked for her, who are active politically. They're not just personal friends, buddies, roommates, people who live in her building.
These are people you know from the campaign.
Now, one of the allegations that were made is that from this committee to defeat Margarita Lopez was that she's hiring friends who live in one of her apartments.
Well, now, I don't personally know the people who are named, but I do know that Margarita has some of the people do have professional qualifications that would qualify them for employment, for doing legitimate, whether they're notaries or whether they have some other technical abilities. They're not people that I know personally. Their names have cropped up over the years.
Now, tell me what effect this has had, because you've known these people, you've talked about working with them for decades, you've lived in the neighborhood for a long time. When you walk down the streets, do you have problems? Are people confronting you or saying mean things about you behind your back?
Well, who knows about that?
I don't worry about things people say behind my back, but as I said initially, I feel I do have some responsibility to my neighbors and to people who are involved in politics generally throughout Manhattan and the city, to come forward and try to explain something that happens and to deal with the situation, to pretend that it's not happening. Now, not everybody agrees with me, but I'm willing to take the heat.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the conversation in the last minute or so we have?
I only will reiterate that I hope that Margarita is able to clear this up, because she's a person who has contributed a great deal to our community. She has put forward an excellent replacement, Rosie Mendez, and I hope that none of this reflects on Rosie in any way.
Will you be working with Margarita on her next campaign?
Well, we'll see about that.
Thanks a lot, Phipl VanAver from Community Board 3, well, a former member of Community Board 3, but a community activist from the Lower East Side, from the Tompkins Square Park neighborhood. I'm Paul DeRienzo.
I'm Miss Joan Moossy.
This has been Let Them Talk, and we'll be telling you when we'll be appearing next on Manhattan Neighborhood Networks, and we'll be hopefully going to a regular weekly status before too long, and we look forward to taking your phone calls when we reach that point, and we'll definitely open up the phones and focus on you and allow you, the viewer, to ask your own questions, and maybe we'll have Phipl on again so that we can have the opportunity to take your calls in the near future. Thank you very much, and if you want to contact Joni and I, we have several emails. Right now we're going to use pdr@echonyc.com, ECHONYC.com.
talk if they want to.